was at that time the only national blackball in the United States. If you were a stevedore and you worked in Philadelphia and you got blackballed, you could go to New Orleans or the West Coast. You couldn't go anywhere if you were blackballed by the railroad. I'm now generation 3 of 4 generations of union activists.
Yeah.
Okay, why do I tell this story? Because it's an intro to something else. Right to work. It's based on Taft-Hartley, the rabid right-wing Congress of 1946. This bill passed over Democratic President Truman's veto. Is claimed by the writers. By the way, the man who wrote Taft-Hartley actually penned out the words. His immediate prior employment was chief counsel for the National Association of Manufacturers. Pretty anti-labor group.
Yeah.
He will tell you, as today people tell you about right to work. Look at Taft-Hartley. The first 4 pages are all benefits for labor. Almost a lie. The first 4 pages are full of benefits for labor, but they are all repetitions of existing benefits guaranteed by other labor law, except for one thing. My grandfather would have been able to work in the railroads again because blackball was eliminated. That is the only benefit for labor. After that, the law goes south. Things in right-to-work states, such as a union shop. How many times do you hear the right-wingers say, you shouldn't have to belong to the union? Well, guess what? Union shop doesn't mean you have to belong to the union. So why do they call it that? So they can go on with the lie generation after generation. The guy who wrote it was pretty smart, but it's a lie. You don't have to belong to a union. That's closed shop, non-existent, illegal before Taft-Hartley. So what do we got today? Today we have ignorance on the part of the American worker and voter. He knows almost nothing about unions because they don't teach you anything about unions. Sadly, most apprentice programs don't teach you enough about unions. What do they do for you and what they cannot do for you? Well, they couldn't save my pension, I'll tell you that much. That was corporate greed. However, there are things that you need to know. You need to know that corporations don't give you these benefits because they think it's the good and right thing to do. They give you these benefits because unions worked to get those benefits. And if you never belong to a union, you still benefit because somebody else went on strike, lost their wages, somebody else paid for those benefits for you to get. The only reason why the non-union shop has weekends and healthcare and everything else you can imagine is because they have to compete with the union shop. Now, the union worker does make more money in the same job than the non-union worker. 15% is about what it turns out in things that's easy to measure, like production line stuff. Okay? And he is responsible for 23% improvement in efficiency in a union shop over a non-union shop. Now, you don't get to keep all that money. You got to share it with management, but you should be able to keep half of that money, and in fact, that's about how it works out. About half of that 23% winds up in the union worker's pocket. The other half, rightfully, shared with management that cooperated with you to get the job done. Now, the benefits are so many that I have a whole page here. A whole page of benefits. Many of these are obvious. Higher wages, we just talked about that. But some of them aren't so obvious. Child labor laws, they wouldn't exist without unions. And it was primarily the miners' union that produced those. Oh, miners' union. Let's talk about that for a moment. In 1907, the coal miner death rate was 5.1 per thousand in the United States. Today, the death rate is 0.13 in the United States. Why are we so much better now? Because unions fought for safety improvements in mines and healthcare for miners and all their health issues. That's why it's better today. Oh, well, maybe it's just better because 100 years has gone by, and let's take a look at some other countries. How about China, which is the largest coal producer in the world, and by the way, doing a better job of trying to control the emissions than we are right now. Yes, their death rate was 13 back then, and now is 5. Still a lot higher than ours. Oh, they don't have unions to make it better. So if we compare today's death rate in China to our death rate here, the difference is what unions have done for their workers. What else is not maybe so obvious? How about veterans' employment? Most people in America don't know that almost every union has a special office to transition veterans into their union. This is going to be even more important since the government effort to do this is on the chopping block. As a veteran, I resent that. What else is under attack today? Americans with disabilities under attack. What else is under attack? How about privacy rights? That's one that just came up. And guess what? The Trump administration is already written laws that you're going to see put forth that will seriously erode privacy rights. This means things like your employer will be able to subject you unwillingly to, for example, a lie detector test without cause. So what else? Education. Already mentioned a couple of times. Public schools. Union teachers. All this nonsense about private, for-profit charter schools. They don't work. Their test scores are terrible, even though they get to select who goes there. The only one that wins in a charter school is the administrator. And why are we putting up with this? Because in state legislatures, I'll give you the example of Virginia. In Virginia, the state legislature has forced counties to use K-12 when they voted against using K-12 and wanted to go back to their public schools because their kids were not properly served. So, as previously mentioned by my better speaker than I am, Christina, predecessor, public school boards are important. Yeah. Somebody please run. I've taken enough of your holiday time, folks. Happy Labor Day.
Yeah.
We have an unscheduled speaker, but he is going to be addressing an issue that's so important. We're glad to get him on. Many of you may have noticed in the Northwest Herald over the last couple of days the outrageous case of an area father who was arrested on misdemeanor charges and was able to make bail, and under the new law signed by none other than Bruce Browner, should have been able to make bail, but continues to be held by the McHenry County Sheriff in contravention to Illinois state law on an immigration hold, and is subject to almost immediate deportation. This is an outrageous injustice, and we have here one of the attorneys who are leading the fight to save this man and leading the fight for justice. And I want to say this happened on the same day. This is happening on the same day that the word has got out that the Trump administration is going to rescind the Dreamers Act and subject all of those young people to immediate deportation. Folks, it's time to get angry, on your feet, and moving. And I'd like to present Attorney George Kalilis.
Thank you. It is a joy to be here with you today. Thank you for your support. I represent a poor immigrant, a day worker from Mexico, who has been a landscaper in the United States of America for the last 20 years, trying to put food on his family's table. Unlike what the white nationalists and the alt-right and the Republican right party would like you to believe, Mr. Macedo, this poor man, and the people he represents, the millions of day workers who are trying to put food on their table, they are the real forgotten workers. They are the real forgotten workers of America, and I'm asking you to please support them like you support your own. The Illinois Trust Act on Wednesday morning codified a deeply held constitutional principle that no man, no person should be held in custody simply based on the basis of their skin tone, on the basis of their immigration status. Governor Rauner passed that law, and it became effective immediately. The Illinois Trust Act required any state agency holding somebody on simply their immigration status to immediately release them. The McHenry County Sheriff has refused to do that. The McHenry County Sheriff initially allowed the man an opportunity to post bond in violation of his 8th Amendment rights under the Constitution of the United States of America. It is a practice that the McHenry County Sheriff has enforced for years now.
Yes.
When Mexican families show up to post their loved ones out of our county jail, they are discouraged from doing so, and they are told that if they post bond, their money will be forfeited and their loved one will be taken away. On Wednesday, that is exactly what the county jail told Mr. Macedo, and we rushed to court. And on Friday morning, Judge Wilburn, an honorable judge here in McHenry County, told the sheriff flat out to allow this man to have their bond posted. But despite having their post bonded like any other person deserves, and despite the clear mandate of Illinois law to release any person held in custody simply based on their immigration status, instead the McHenry County Sheriff chose to make this thing something sinister and something political. He chose to consult with a state representative, Mr. McSweeney, who I don't know who they are. What I do know is that this state representative advised the county sheriff, and in concert with the county sheriff, advised him to refuse to follow the law and allow Mr. Macedo his immediate release. Folks, you should care deeply. You should care deeply if you care about the Constitution, that magnificent document that binds all of us together. You should care if you care about Illinois law. Some state representative refused to allow the law to stand, the law that his own legislature passed, and advised the county agency, a county official, to betray Illinois law, to not enforce it. I guess because Mr. Macedo is just a poor day worker. But I think it's more sinister than that, because the McHenry County blog indicated that both the McHenry County Sheriff as well as the state representative contacted Mr. Sessions. Folks, why is the Attorney General of the United States interfering in Illinois law? Why is the Attorney General of the United States supporting a deeply unconstitutional practice and against Illinois law? The Illinois Trust Act, folks, codified federal law that reminded the feds and all of us that holding somebody simply based on their immigration status is unconstitutional. That is the law that Attorney General Sessions, the county sheriff, and the state representative are working against. Tomorrow morning, I will present a writ of mandamus to an Illinois judge, and I'm going to ask an Illinois judge to order the sheriff to enforce the law, to do the right thing. I'm going to be at the courthouse tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and I know it's a Tuesday morning, and you all have better things to do. But I think there is nothing better than standing what is true and what is right. And I want to take one last minute to address the haters. When this story ran at the Northwest Herald, there's a whole lot of people who are suggesting that simply because this man is not an American citizen, then we don't care. Simply because this man is not a citizen, then the government can do whatever the heck they want with him. They can hold him, they can ship him, they can do whatever they want. But I tell everyone who's thinking that our Constitution was not founded on principles of nationalism. Our Constitution was founded on principles of human dignity. That when our Constitution